Wow, okay, hi, good morning. Wow, we're really starting this one off quick. I didn't even wait for the camera to stop shaking. Anyways, I have to get working. Yeah, because I have a few other projects that I wasn't expecting to have. So we gotta get the ball rolling on this one, which is going to be my big contest build. Now there's a reason that we're standing here with her, okay? Because she's same, you get it, it's more Frankenstein. I just recorded a weird video, so I feel weird, okay? Anyways, yeah, so I I filmed the intro basically last for this video, so love that for me. Yeah, so we're just gonna ball, I guess. Welcome to Frankenstein, Elizabeth Crucifix. Maybe okay, I'm gonna be completely honest, I am setting myself up with multiple molds so that I could potentially sell these. I don't know if I would. We'll see how difficult it is to make one in the end. I might just sell the crosses because the beads that I bought for the chains, those were not fun, okay? They were not it. And it's probably just because I was doing it the accurate way and the difficult way, but you know who I am. Don't act like you're not surprised by this at all. Okay, let's see what I've done. Okay, let's see what I've done. Also, one thing I should say, if you watched the video for this beetle necklace, I think you can see that I made the red beetle in that video. I do have the footage from that for this. It's been a few months since I made that, so I don't remember what it looks like, but you will probably see that more than likely first. Just know that is very old footage, and it was from my learning silicone video, so yes. Also, I am not a professional. Do not treat this like a tutorial at all. I don't know what I'm doing. This is my third silicone and resin project, okay? So I am truly like learning while I'm doing. Always wear proper PPE. Don't do as I do. Do as I say, not as I do. But also don't do as I say because I don't know what I'm doing, okay? There's your warning. This isn't a tutorial, okay? There's other tutorials on the internet. Go find those from people who have much more experience than I do. I'm still learning, okay? I am still learning. I learned how to do this a month ago. I'm having great success, but that's, you know. Okay, now we're getting into it. Like I said, I did preemptively make the beetles, so I did have to make the pattern based off of that, and also the stones that I got to go in the crosses. I did pre-shop all of these materials before I made a pattern, which, looking back, isn't the brightest idea, but those were also, like, the best options that I found where I was. So I sculpted everything out of Sculpey first, and then made it into a silicone mold. You can check out more on the beetles of that in my learning how to make silicone video. I have a little bit of footage from it here. But yeah, I'm just sculpting with Sculpey, and I'm using silicone brushes to do it. And then for the beetles, I actually cast them with a little bit of Angelus red paint in clear UV resin, and I just kind of mixed it in so it gives it like a not quite opaque kind of look. And I went through a few of those before I got the consistency right, and I don't know what it is. It's like a tiny bit of red per amount of clear. So I basically just traced the beetle for my pattern and then did the little square around it before figuring out how big the actual cross was going to be. I also got these stone like pendant holders, and it had a little hook to string your chain through, and I just clipped that off with some like pretty strong wire cutters, and then I sanded it down with some sandpaper. And those ended up being a 1/4 inch diameter, so that just kind of helped me figure out what size everything was going to end up being. I'm just doing a lot of like measuring and tracing and like figuring out how things work around the original design, but with this size. I think mine is slightly bigger than the one from the film, but I'm not Tiffany Co, so I did what I could. I worked with what I had, okay? I don't have glass to blow. I'm not Tiffany. But I basically designed one side, and then I traced it onto a smaller piece of like kind of tracing paper, and then I used that and just rotated it around and traced it onto all of the different ends so they all matched perfectly, at least on the pattern. I also kept all of the gems the same width from the center. So where there's these 3 here, I marked out 2, and then I just kind of traced it once again. I'm keeping everything very even via tracing. I did end up reworking some of this in the final design, but that's just because I like don't know how to sculpt with Sculpey very well, so I did my best. I literally use this more as a guide than an actual pattern at the end of the day. But it was really nice to have all of the sizing, and then I could make additional patterns to like kind of copy and trace over the top and just kind of piece together from my original pattern tracing thing. For the actual sculpting, I basically just took a big chunk and I flattened it. I used a lot of round things and this parchment paper to just like really flatten it out, and it was by no means even, but I got it like pretty flat, and then I just cut it out to the width of the base for the cross and started piecing it together. I used a lot of the silicone sculpting tools to really smooth everything out during this process. They're a big help. Highly recommend. There was definitely a learning curve to what I was doing and like what would stick to what and what wouldn't stick, and yeah, you can see me just kind of faffing about a lot here because I like don't know what I'm doing. Listen, I watched someone else make this same thing on Instagram Reels and I said, yeah, I got this. No, I in fact don't got this, not like that. But listen, practice makes perfect, so I'm just gonna keep practicing, you know? I got all this clay still to work with, so who knows what we're gonna get. You'll see here where I kind of start just deciding to fly by the seat of my pants with this pattern. I also used one of the beetles that I didn't really like how it turned out to squish down because I knew that they were all the same exact size. And I knew that I just wanted a filler for the other ones to go in. Also, I think I lost my tweezers, so I'm using my pliers. The little pendant hanging things that I got to set the stones in, because I did buy the stones separately because I knew I wanted nice stones and these ones were like the perfect size, but I did have to rip them out of a previous setting. Anyways, I kind of ended up having to make the crucifix the depth of those little settings for the stones, and I did use one of them to push in, and I knew that I was going to be making multiple molds for this crucifix, so I kind of just inset them here as like a temporary holder because I knew in my like second casting of this one, like basically the one right after my new master for this, that I would be drilling all the way through to get like a full empty hole for the ones that would have the settings in them. Like I could use this silicone mold if I was just doing like rhinestones or different sorts of stones instead of the full settings, but like I said, I'm not the best at this yet. I'm still learning, okay? What I did learn after my last one though was that you should cook your bases. So I did that, I cooked it, and then you have to let it fully dry until it's cold. I learned that the hard way. It got a little deformed, like just a little bit, and then I fixed it before it was cold. But yeah, I basically just started sanding it so much, like so much. And then I thought that like some Mod Podge was gonna do a lot for smoothing, and it in fact did not. Yeah, I regret that a lot. But I kept sanding, and then I was like, yeah, this is good enough. I'm gonna make another mold anyway, so I'm just gonna make a mold of this one. It'll be fine. So everything that I do cast out of this first mold is real rough, and it needs a lot of filler. So that's great. I love that for me so much. But I learned a lot about filling with the actual resin later, so. Also, I'm still trying to figure out how you tack down your pieces and not have the silicone go around the back. So if anyone has any tips for that, because last time I just put it on like some packing tape and that was like sticky side up, and that didn't work that great, but I also hadn't cooked them that time, so yeah. But then I saw someone else hot glue theirs down, so I hot glued mine down, but I don't know if I didn't do enough hot glue or what, but yeah, please help. Anyways, I poured the silicone. I had to do 2 batches because what I made initially definitely wasn't enough, and then I let it rest for a while, and then I ripped it out. And then after I ripped it out, I realized now I definitely should have let it sit for like another 2 hours before I did anything with it, because like the side that was on the packing tape was still icky, gooey, yucky. But I didn't. I just immediately started ripping that shit out. Yeah, see, so the silicone definitely went just like around the sides, and I just started going at it with a really sharp X-Acto knife. Yeah, this is just what I found works for me. And I knew I glued on those balls at the ends. I'm sorry, those are beads. I don't know why I said balls. But I glued those on, and I knew I wanted to keep those like deep in the mold, and so I just kind of cut little insets basically to kind of jimmy them out. But yeah, it's not my best mold, I won't lie. I did clean it up with some little scissors though. And then I poured the resin in there real slow, and then I used the silicone brush to kind of jam it in all of the little crevices and make sure everything was covered. I used my Dremel to drill the holes, and I probably should have just used a drill bit because I do have experience using drill bits to drill holes in resin, but I use my Dremel, and it really, they're not straight holes. They're not great. They're not great. Okay, so there's a whole lot going on right here. We have 2 molds now. This is our original one. It makes really, really ugly crucifixes, but it's a great base. This is our new one. This one is the one that I drilled all the way through, and it's impossible to get the molds out. It's also impossible to color the molds. So, well, this is one of the ugly ones, and it was clear, and then I painted it with this, and then it was still ugly. So then I painted it with a Tester's glossy dark red, and then it was still ugly, but the coloring is great. This one is actually like our pretty nice one out of the second mold, and I painted it with just the Testers all over, and then a little bit of the Angelus red on the back. And I like this one. I think it needs the Angelus on the sides as well, but I think that just the Testers on top is really good. This one, okay, well this was a little test. This one also is not fully cured inside because I put too much paint in it. But I did this one the same way that I did the Little Beetles, which is when it was, before I cured it, when it was just the resin in there, I added a teeny bit of Angelus paint and I mixed it up. And then on half of it, the shiny half, I painted the Tester's red on top, which is also what I have done for this little beauty right here. And this one I think is my winner. And I've just done some red on the back. I need to go back again and do it again, because when that gets painted gold, I don't want it to shine all the way through. Like, this is pretty, like, you know, solid. It's not super see-through. I also stopped kind of drilling the holes all the way through, or like trying to sand the bottom completely flat, because I realized that like I don't think they'll fall through. I'm also gonna put some resin on the back, but as long as it's like all the way back there, then it's totally fine, because this is just gonna sit properly still. And they also sit at literally the perfect depth. So yeah, that's our update. I need to get some gold paint on this so that I can get some beetles on, and then I need to figure out what's after that, I suppose. I haven't been this excited about a project in a long time. I'm having a blast. Okay, here is my official process for how I fully made like 6 of these crucifixes now. So I fill the mold like 3/4 of the way full with the UV resin, and then I put like 2 little drops of the Angelus red paint on the side of the mold, and then I mix those in. And then I kind of top it off with some more resin and then mix that in a little bit more. and then I cure it, and then I, you know, let it cool, and then I take it out and I let it cure again. But to smooth out any like mistakes or anything, rather than using the Mod Podge or like traditional filler, I was just putting a little bit more of the UV resin on the mold and then painting it into the cracks of the piece with the silicone brush and curing it intermittently. And then I would sand, and then I would cure, and then I would sand, and then I would cure, and yeah, it was just a lot of that. After that, I went in with an enamel clear coat to get that really nice glass sheen. And then to do all the gold, I used my classic Testors enamel gold paint. This paint is so dry. I've had it since 2016. So I need to go buy some more. But like always, I wasn't patient, and I was like, ooh, let me just hold it by the holes. And it actually did work really well doing that to paint the sides. So the actual one is made by Tiffany, so it's all glass, but then it's cased in like the gold metal. So I was just trying to replicate all of that as best as I could. I was using a really steady hand and a very pointy paintbrush to get this. For the section around the beetle, I learned from all of my prior mistakes that I actually was just going to put like a little cross on where the beetle is going to go and then paint the gold on after the beetle is already on. Because I did do a little trim of resin around where the beetle sat, because the actual one does have a little gold case holding the beetle in. But I painted the back of the cross red, as you saw, so that the gold wouldn't shine through before I put the gold on, and then I put a little dollop of E6000 under the beetle. I put that down, and then once that had dried, like I said, I went back in with more resin on the mold and then around the beetle to get that nice gold trim around it. I also used E6000 for this one that I put the official settings in. I did a different one where I just used the stones, and then I also did one with just rhinestones where I basically just filled those holes all the way up with resin, or basically all the way up, and then cured that, and then actually set the stones with more resin. To get this final hanging look, I drilled a teeny tiny little hole right under that middle bead on the top, and then I put a pretty snug, really thin jump ring in there to connect to the jump ring that's attached to the pendant holder that I bought. I think I lost the clip, but I did paint some resin on the gold pendant holder so that it would match the crucifix. And then I just strung those all together, and I actually resined the jump ring to the crucifix so that it would not open. I put the opening on the back, and yeah, I resined it to it. For the beads, I bought these in a bead store in downtown LA. I don't know what they are. They're stones. They're very nice, but I did accidentally buy 3 different sizes. I didn't realize until I was making this, but I literally bought these months ago, like last December, I think. So I've had them for a while, but I just separated them by size, and then I realized I've got 3 sizes. There's 3 strands, so we'll just make it extra drama. And these are strung like traditional, really fancy pearl necklaces are strung, where there's a different knot in the string in between each pearl, so that if your necklace does break, your pearls don't explode all over the alleyway like Martha Wayne's. So like, yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe that Bruce's dad bought Martha such cheap pearls that they just exploded all over and they weren't individually knotted. I mean, I also understand why, because this took forever and it sucked, but it looks really nice now. Sorry, I left a little too hard of my own joke. Anyways, I did 3 different sized strands, and then I left a little hole in the middle of the bottom one. I also know that the top 2 strands are pretty tight against her neck, and the bottom one does have a little bit of a hang to it. So I made that one slightly longer than the top 2. I also ended up taking some beads off of the top 2 after I tried it on the first time. I also definitely didn't leave myself enough string. And that is not my fault. I was doing the best that I could because you could not string this onto the needle, let me tell you. Anyways, I did one clasp and then I was like, this is garbage, we're redoing this. So I took it back apart and it worked out so much better. But I basically took a post, like a jewelry post, and I put just 3 little eyes on it, I guess you could say, using my little teeny tiny pliers that I just have. And this was guesswork on if this would actually work. I was fully planning for this to fail and to just have to go to Michael's, but then I didn't. So it was great. And it was perfect. So I just made 2 of those, and then I took everything apart and I realized that I could use the lighter to help me get this on the needle, and I just threaded it through and I tied it like 15 times onto that little gold loop. There was a lot of a learning curve with this project, and it is definitely cut your strings super duper extra long and leave yourself like 5 inches on the end to work with. Yeah. Once all of that misery was over, I strung on another teeny tiny little jump ring with a clasp, and then another pretty big jump ring on the other end. And I love when jewelry is that easy, because it almost never is. A little finishing touch on the ends here. I just took a little crazy glue. I'm definitely gonna go back in with some resin though. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that UV resin is my bestie now. But to keep everything in place for a start, I used just a little bit of super glue on those ends. And I also went through and trimmed all of the ends and used the lighter on them so that they wouldn't unravel, and that hopefully that would also stick it all more together. One can only hope that this doesn't fall apart, but luckily the pearls are going nowhere. And that's on tying so many knots. I'm so sorry, Martha Wayne. Okay, so I actually made 2. I do feel like this one is gonna fall apart though. This one is my cheaper one. I didn't do any of the knots between the pearls, the beads, because these were the ones that didn't fit on the 3 strand, so these are all single strand of that, and I tried to do the knots and it just didn't work. But let's try these on. I forgot to take off my sweater. You know what? This is probably fine. Okay, I also didn't cut the string. I didn't cut the strings of this one yet, but I figured this one will be like, because I want one for like everyday wear. Oh my god. Okay. Helps if I actually like hold the clasp. Okay, yeah, this one is like everyday wear. When I'm just like feeling it, I need a little bit more oomph in my day. Let's just take the sweater off. Ta-da! So this one has the same stones as the nice one, but they're not set in the little things. They're just set in resin. And so like some of them are real crooked, real crooked. This is our everyday. And then here comes our really nice one. So this one has these custom like things that I just made out of posts. I could have bought them when I bought everything else. I should have, but I didn't. I also went in and it took forever, but I did. I went in on the bottom one and I closed this gap a little bit. So I literally went one direction. I went that way and I just moved every single knot on one side. That was not the most fun thing to do, but let's put this one on. Stop it right now. It is literally perfect. I have never been happier in my entire life. Oh my god, I want to wear this tomorrow, but I can't. That's not the vibe. That's not the vibe. Oh my god, I just want to wear it all the time. This is my nice one though. This is my show one. So, you know, I'll mostly be wearing this one, I do believe. At least just out and about. That's why I made 2. I had enough beads. I used like every single bead, basically. Yeah, oh my god, okay, I love it so much. Oh my god! And I guess stay tuned if I decide to make more for other people, I guess. If you want one, reach out and maybe we'll talk about it. I don't know, man. I did, you know, I did have quite a bit of fun making it, so. And I made like 6 in like 4 hours, so. I mean, none of them were perfect. This one's the only one that's perfect. And none of them will look like this one. Oh yeah, let's get the close up so you can kind of see the difference. I suppose I could take this off and do this, but can you see the difference? This one was going to be my good one, and then I coated it with the Tester's Red, and I realized when I put the beetle on how much like darker it became, and I got really worried that it was going to be a lot darker than the beads, and it kind of is. It's kind of fine, but this one I didn't do any of the Tester's Red on, and then this is the only one that has these And I did set them in there with glue, and then, yeah. It looks so freaking good. Okay, it needs like a little bit of gold paint touch up, but other than that, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed our little necklace making moment. And I learned a little bit more about resin making and like silicone. I learned more about resin because when I put on the beetles, I like first tried to glue them in there, and then I was like, that didn't work. So then I put like a little bit of resin around where the beetle sits and then set it in there and then cured it and then put more on the outside. Anyways, I'm gonna go find a safe place to put this now, but thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!